Let's move on, though, into our next topic, Brandon. Looking at a new head coach for his team this year, Jimbo Fisher, going over to, it's not Lubbock, Texas. Where the hell is Texas A&M? Do you know? It's College Station. That's where it is. College Station, Texas. Texas A&M, the Aggies get their new head coach. Jimbo Fisher had their spring game. Also, one thing I forgot to mention at the beginning of the podcast, if you're wondering why Brandon is so sweaty, I think it's because we got to congratulate you, man. You finally had sex, right? Finally? It's been a while, but finally? No?
Gosh, if that was it, holy crap.
No, just a
good... Would have been a lot of good calories burned. But
just a good briskly run?
Just a good run on the treadmill.
A briskly run. Is that even...
A brisk run.
But briskly?
Not in the way that you said it.
So you just say brisk run.
It was a brisk run.
Not a briskly run.
No.
Yeah, I guess that'd be the adverb. But hey, this is an English podcast. We're looking at Texas A&M. We're looking at Jimbo Fisher. I'll get right to the point. I'll ask you, what are the expectations for you when it comes to Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M this year?
They're pretty high. They're pretty high, and I think they should be for Texas A&M as well, because there's a lot of really good things that Jimbo Fisher brings. And I know a lot of people may want to look back at his final season at Florida State and say, hey, this guy went 5-6. They were terrible. Mm-hmm. Well, remember, he lost a starting quarterback week 1 against Alabama and never got him back. Mm-hmm. And it was a real struggle ever since that happened the rest of the season. So they go 5-6. They're lucky to have gotten to that point.
But we're going to talk about DeAndre Francois sometime this offseason, too.
What a shame. What a shame.
Yeah, we're going to talk about him, too.
But you look at his overall record. He goes 83-23 while at Florida State. Absolutely incredible. So he's a winner. He's a winner. And we talked about this last week with Jeremy Pruitt going to Tennessee. Those are the types of guys you want running your programs. Guys who know how to win. Guys who have run a winning program. Or guys wherever they've gone are outstanding. Offensive coordinator, going back to Jimbo Fisher. Offensive coordinator under Nick Saban at LSU. Go to the 2003 National Championship.
However, that's going to be another thing we look at now, and it's going to be something that I know they bring up during broadcasts. Now the mentor is going to be going up against. I know they played last year, and Saban beat the underling like he usually does. Like usually, it's what coordinators under Nick Saban are winless against him.
No wins. But look at Kirby Smart. Look how close he got.
Yeah, if it wasn't for good old Tua, he would have been the only one.
But the whole thing is that those are the types of guys that are going to be able to turn around programs. And while yes, Kevin Sumlin did a really good job of recruiting and getting good quarterbacks,
Jimbo Fisher will do the same thing.
He struggled mightily. He struggled mightily to develop the quarterback. Whereas Jimbo Fisher, also an outstanding recruiter, I think is going to be much better at being able to mold that quarterback, be able to bring that quarterback along and along quickly, allow them to learn the system pretty fast. And that's going to help them to just be that much more prepared and ready to get into a game scenario than they were under Kevin Sumlin. And again, you know, Kevin Sumlin was your typical 8-5 kind of guy. Like, he was a coaster. But Jimbo Fisher is not. He is not. And now with him, he's got a 10-year deal, $75 million, I believe. So much money. But they're going to expect success. Texas A&M has the biggest stadium in the SEC. With Jimbo Fisher as their coach, they better be filling up every single seat.
Well, and that's the thing where I don't think you have to worry about that, because even at the spring game for Texas A&M, they had a record crowd at that spring game. It was, and I'm looking right here, 48,129 people in attendance for Texas A&M's spring game, which surpassed the previous record of 45,212, and that was Johnny Manziel's sophomore year that spring game happened. And for me, the biggest question, the thing I really liked was I was watching an interview that Jordan Rogers had with Jimbo Fisher when he was the ESPN interview I was watching, and when they showed tape of the practice, Jimbo Fisher said to his team, basically, come out here to work. It ain't going to be like it used to be. Basically, to me, I know he didn't mean it like this, but the way I saw it was, hey, that guy that was here before, how you guys ran practices with Kevin Sumlin, it ain't going to be like that anymore. You got to come out here. You got to be ready to play. Now, I know he wasn't saying that like, oh, I'm going to take a dig at Kevin Sumlin. He was just getting his guys rearing to go during practice. But I thought about it, and I'm like, wow, it's true. Like, this is going to be a different atmosphere. We're not going to get we're not going to get complacent like you might have last year. We're going to get here. We're going to get to work, and we're going to do our job. And to me, the biggest question for them is who's going to start at quarterback. They've got two right now. They played during the spring game. You've got Mod, who hit my microphone there. So if you're on the audio side, you're like, well, what did Ricky do? I hit my mic. I turned it off. Maybe I wanted myself to shut up. But you have Mod, who started 8 games last season. You got Starkel, who started 5. Each of them had their moments during the spring game. But to me, it's going to be which one of these guys wins the job this spring and which one will give the Aggies a better chance to win with Jimbo Fisher in 2018.
Well, I think I want to go back to the point that you made in terms of running practices and stuff like that. Again, so similar to Jeremy Pruitt in Tennessee. Again, a guy who comes from a winning culture, knows how to run a practice for winners. And I know that sounds silly, but this is how, if you want to win, if you want to be successful, this is how hard we have to work. This is what we have to do. And this, again, a guy who has won wherever he's gone, Jimbo Fisher, is doing the exact same thing.
I'll throw in another example, and I'll throw it in because we almost talked about him today. It was either this topic or the other one. Scott Frost, who I threw out for a topic today. I know on a lower standard to some, but had success, a lot of success last year with Central Florida, taking what he did there, moving it over to Nebraska, where Nebraska under, under Riley and then under Bo Pelini, was that his name? I forget his name. Basically, he stunk. That's why Riley came in. Coming from just losing to, hey, we're going to run things different. It's going to be a different atmosphere here. Yeah, a little bit different than a Jimbo Fisher or a Jeremy Pruitt, but almost the same thing. I'm going to do what made me successful over here and do it here with these kids.
And Scott Frost was so good that they didn't even have to win a national title, and they still got one in their stadium. I mean, that's how good he was as a head
they
coach.
did everything that Alabama didn't. Won their division, won the conference, beat Auburn, went undefeated.
Yeah, but guess what? That doesn't get you a national title at the end of the day.
Yeah, it says it in the stadium. But 2017.
Yeah, morons.
Go Knights.
But so the whole thing, though, again, what I think is going to be great is that this is going to be one of the fun quarterback battles to watch, I think, over the summer. Okay. Reason being is because with Jimbo Fisher being that guy who you bring him in, he knows quarterbacks. He knows working with quarterbacks. He's done it before. He's done it before in the SEC. So now he's back doing it, and he's had success in 2 of the best conferences in all of college football, ACC, SEC, and he's going to push these guys to their limits. So I think by the end of the summer, we're going to see 2 very much improved quarterbacks, and it's going to be a very interesting battle to see who ends up winning it out. That's me. But ultimately, he's going to bring everybody else to the next level on this team. That is why you have to be really excited for Jimbo Fisher. Again, throughout his last season that he had at Florida State, that's a fluke, 5-6. But look at what he's done at not just there, but look at what he's done with LSU. Look at what he did with Auburn back in the day. The teams he was with, that he coached for, the positions that he was in, very successful. Very successful. And I think that Texas A&M got their guy. They paid a lot of money, but I think he's going to be worth every single cent.
Every single penny.
Every single cent, I think he's going to be worth it.
Here's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the schedule, and my early prediction as of May 3rd, of course this will change but if injuries happen and as we get to later in the spring and later in the summer, I'm saying right now, I'm looking at it, this team will go 6 wins for sure, and I know that's a low bar. They will make a bowl game. I see them as an 8-win team. And the reason why I say that is last year, look at their losses. And they lost to UCLA, a team they should have beat, but Josh Rosen came back and beat them. Then they lost to Alabama, Mississippi State, Auburn, LSU. I'm not counting the bowl game. I'm saying regular season. So LSU, Auburn, Mississippi State, Alabama, UCLA. I think the same thing happens this year, except the only change will be they beat Mississippi State. So the losses that right now I see them doing is Clemson. The only reason I have them losing to Clemson is Jimbo Fisher. Yeah, he didn't have DeAndre Francois last year. Clemson has his number. Clemson is a phenomenal, like, you look at the way too early mock draft and the way too early big boards for the NFL, that Clemson defense is going to be stacked this year. They're going to be dangerous. I don't think this team in Jimbo's first year beats a Clemson team. Plus, Dabo Swinney kind of knows how Jimbo works. It's kind of like a throw the playbook out. You guys know each other so well. It's kind of a chess game out there. I think they'll lose that, so it'll kind of be take that as your UCLA loss. They'll beat Northwestern State. They'll beat Louisiana Monroe. No surprises there. Alabama at Alabama. Give it to Nick Saban. Still going to be undefeated against the underlings, as I'm going to call them. The underlings are going to stay defeated against Nick Saban. Arkansas, I think they win. Kentucky, I think they win. South Carolina, I think they win. This will be the part of the season where they kind of catch some momentum, gain some confidence, win some games against some SEC teams. Mississippi State, yeah, you're going on the road. However, the thing about Mississippi State this year, they don't got Dan Mullen anymore. I think that is a huge loss for Mississippi State. I got this year Texas A&M beating the Bulldogs of Mississippi State. However, the good thing is, yeah, they played Florida last year. They don't play Florida this year, so they don't have to play Dan Mullen and his new Gator team. Then against Auburn, at Auburn, right now I'm going to give it to Auburn just because they beat Texas A&M last year. I know it's different with Jimbo Fisher, but Auburn is still a really good team, really well-coached team. Ole Miss, I think they'll beat. UAB, I think they will beat. LSU, I think that'll be a toss-up one, but I will go ahead and give that one to LSU right now just because of I like LSU and I think they're going to be a better team. So what did I say? Clemson, Alabama, Auburn, LSU. What's that? 4 losses on the year. That means you're going to end how many are they playing?
You won 9-4.
9-4 overall. So I mean that's a good regular season. You'll go to a bowl game. Might even be a not New Year's Day game, not one of the New Year's 6, but could be a good bowl game for you at 9-4.
Yeah, I think they're probably going to be within the 7-9 win range this next season. I think that's definitely realistic. They go 7-6 this past year, so anything past that is
8-4.
Certainly.
They had 12 games, so I had them at 8-4 because they had 4 losses.
Certainly a step up though to
win their bowl game.
8
You're
games,
at 9-4.
8 games, 9 games. That's what they'd be looking for, I think, in year one. That'd be great. Get back to being competitive. To not be 8-5 would be really fun. To be 9-4 at the end of the season.
Where do you think is the? I'm gonna use this term incorrectly, but roll with me here. What's the Mendoza line? What's basically the lowest record they can have this year for you? Is let's say you're a Texas A&M fan. You're sitting there going, all right, I didn't want this many wins, but this is a success. Where's that line for this is the lowest wins we can have for me as a Texas A&M fan to say, all right, it was a successful season, year one for Jimbo Fisher?
Well, I don't think that necessarily they would say it was successful with what I'm going to say. But
I'm happy with it. I'm
7.
I'm not excited,
7.
but I'm not happy.
7.
What would you think the mindset is then if it's 6? You still get a bowl game, but I know it's we went 6-6.
Well,
it's not that 7.
Well,
it's not
let's look at what the West was last year. Arkansas was 4-8. Ole Miss was 6-6.
Yeah,
and Arkansas was dead last. So I would not want to be 6-6. 6-6.
Because let's be honest, with their schedule, if they're going 6-6, that means you're getting at least 5 losses in conference.
Yeah, so
because you're not losing to Louisiana Monroe or Northwestern State.
That's why I'm saying though, if you have only 6 wins, you're literally
Bottom of the
right at the bottom there. I mean, again, Arkansas was not good this past year. They only win those 4 games, but you want to be somewhere at least in the middle of the pack. So if you're between 7 to 9, you're going to be in the middle of the pack. Mississippi State and LSU, they both win 9 games. And then obviously Auburn and Alabama at the top with 10 and 13.
Which is funny because I wonder with saying 7, if any Aggie fan in the comment section is going to bring this up because it just popped into my head. Oh, you say 7 and 6, but Kevin Sumlin went there last year and got fired. Now, I know his was a culmination of what was going on. With him, it was our biggest kind of thing. The thing I ragged on him for the longest time was complacency of like, you're right here. You're not getting over the hump. You're not even testing the hump. It's like, I'm right here. I'll stay right here. That's how many wins I'm going to get, and I'm fine with it. Well, I'm not fine with it, but that's where I'm at. The thing that I really think, though, is I really think that this is going to be a 7 to 8 win, not counting the bowl game. The bowl game could make him a 9-win, 8-win team. But I think this is a 7, 8-win team regular season because really it comes down to the 3 big games of what are you going to do against Auburn? What are you going to do against Alabama? What are you going to do against LSU? LSU to me is the toss-up because Ed Orgeron, great coach, or I'm going to say great coach, has a team in place, although what are we going to get from them this season? Last year they were 6-2 in the SEC. Alabama, I expect them to be 7-1 again, with probably their only loss if they do lose being to an Auburn team. And then you got Auburn, who's also a well-coached team that I expect to beat 7-1, 6-2 at the worst in the SEC. So really it's going to be this year, how do you compete with those top 3 dogs in the conference?
So here's how I want to put something in perspective, though, is that he signed a 10-year, $75 million contract.
I know it's not just about this year.
No, but what I'm saying, though, is that this wasn't like a 3-year deal or a 5-year deal where it's like you got to win, and look pretty good in year 1 because your contract's only 3 years or 5 years.
No, they're playing the long game.
So I'm not so concerned if they don't come right out of the gate and win 10 games in year 1 because even if you kind of start to build a base and everything like that, remember, he's going to be working with a lot of Kevin Sumlin's recruits. He's not going to be working with a lot of Jimbo Fisher recruits.
A recruiting class that in the SEC, let me look really quick, they were 6th in the SEC with 23 total recruits, no 5 stars, 13 4 stars, 10 3 stars.
So I think now that you're in the SEC, it's a gold mine. Your name is Jimbo Fisher. That's going to add to the gold mine. You're going to get more recruits coming into you, wanting to come and play for you. And it may take a little time, potentially, but you can have a year, 2 years, even 3. I'm not saying that we go and win 4 games, 5 games, 6 games, 1, 2, 3, but you've got a little bit more time because you get through 3 years. You still got 7 on your contract to be able to, okay, now we're off and running. These next 7, we're competing every single year for the top. So that's what I'm trying to put in perspective there is that this isn't a short 3 or 5-year contract. This is a freaking 10-year deal.
Jimbo Fisher is like what we talked about in the first segment. He's a Lloyd Carr type of coach.
Yeah.
Where it's like, we're not expecting to get rid of this guy in 3 years or put him on the hot seat in 4 years. We signed him for 10. We expect him to hopefully be here for all 10 of these years. The last question I want to ask you about Texas A&M before I ask you just a general SEC question for this year is, first off, Texas A&M, within this 10-year contract, do you see, if so, when, Texas A&M winning the SEC under Jimbo Fisher, beating an Alabama maybe if Nick Saban's still there?
Yeah.
How many years do you think it takes?
I think it's going to take like 5 to 7 years.
That's what I was thinking.
I think it would take 5 to 7 years because, again,
it's going to take them time to build up that team. And 2, Nick Saban, he's already there. Like, you got to, building up the team is work, but then actually beating Nick Saban is like a whole nother end game that you got to deal with. when it comes to competing in the SEC.
It is, and
especially that side of the conference.
It is, and remember now, LSU's starting to get back to form. Where they were under Les Miles for a long time.
Got your Ed Orgeron impression in you?
And I'm gonna go and get some, donuts and pick up a couple of donuts here and stuff, and I'll be right over to practice. You don't start without me though.
I think that Alabama's not going to be the only team that they're competing against anymore, and it's
Auburn
not. I
and
mean,
LSU.
Auburn. I mean, look at Auburn, what they did last year. Look at what LSU's doing. Look at what Georgia's doing. I mean, look at all. I mean, we're talking
Thank God they don't have to play Georgia
as a
this year.
whole now, not just the West, but all these teams are really starting to come back into form, and it's not just Alabama's house anymore. Yes, is Alabama very dominant? Sure, they are, of course. But look at all of these other teams that are really starting to make a play because their head coaches. Look at Kirby Smart, been there now a couple of seasons. What, 3 years? I think it is with Georgia. Starting to build something there. Starting to build something. At Orgeron, same things happening. I think that those are the types of things that we're going to see happen with Texas A&M as well.
Last question I want to ask you, and this is a general SEC, not really general SEC, but it's outside Texas A&M. One of the things, and this is short, didn't want to make a full segment of it, what are your thoughts? Because I'm thinking, whoa, what the hell was he thinking? Justin Fields, one of the top quarterbacks in this recruiting class for 2018, chooses to go to the Georgia Bulldogs. They get a top guy. Like, what is he? I'm trying to look at what he was, the #1 dual quarterback, #2 nationally ranked for this class, coming to Georgia. Of course, we expect Fromm to start, but I was thinking, like, why do you make that decision? Why, Fromm's the guy you want to start, right? Like, is this just Georgia getting richer? Georgia getting so much richer to where they're going to be at the top for a long time to come.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I mean, why not stack up while you can? Why not get some of the best recruits while you can?
I just kept thinking, I'm like, you do know Eason left because of Fromm, right? But you're committing to go to Georgia.
But remember, though, Fromm is older. This kid's gonna.
He's only a sophomore.
I know, but I'm just saying he's. Things can happen. He has his sophomore season next year, and he could be off to the NFL for all we know.
True.
So it may only be a couple of seasons that this kid would have to sit. So. I think that if you're Georgia, you're not going to say, well, maybe you shouldn't want to come and play for us because we don't know if you're going to start. I find it funny because, like, how I found out about this, and this is the last thing we'll bring up before we go into Mo Bamba, is I'm going to pull it up right now because I watched it last week. So he has his commitment video, right? And he releases it on YouTube, and I think it was through CBS Sports that he released it, and you get down to the final teams. And I'm looking right now. It was Auburn, LSU, Georgia, and I think Penn State were his final teams. And I'm sitting there going, he's going to LSU. I'm like, he's going to LSU. Think of where Alabama is right now. Maybe he could go or not Alabama. Think about where Auburn is right now. Think about where, I'm like, he's not going to Georgia. I'm like, he's going to LSU. And then he says, I'm staying home going to Georgia. And I went, what? Like, Jake Fromm's a quarterback. You do know that, right? But I do get what you're saying. Hey, year happens, could go to the NFL, things could change. But also, remember where...
Jake Fromm could get injured.
Well, I was going to say that, but remember the Alabama situation. I mean, everyone, thought Alabama had their guy, and then all of a sudden, Tua comes out of nowhere, and... he's the reason why they have another national championship. Let's be honest about it. So I think that's one of those things, and that's certainly going to be another exciting.
And Jake Fromm, a true freshman, so he wouldn't be able to go to the NFL until after next season.
Well, there you go. But what I'm saying ultimately is that, take a look at all these different situations. You never know what could happen because everyone believed that Jalen Hurts was the guy. Not saying that he still isn't, but he's the one who leads them throughout the entire year. Tua comes in, plays his ass off in that national championship game, and just was outstanding, solid. And now there's a case to not just look at Jalen Hurts.
Yep.
So that can happen at any time, anywhere. There do not need to be injuries. Sometimes it's just ineffective for one game. You bring in the other guy, he's really good, and you go, well, crap, can't keep him off the field.
Yep.
So that's why anything could happen.
Well, and that was just one. Wanted to get a little bit of that in here right at the end. But Texas A&M fans, you guys, let us know what you guys think down below. What do you expect from the Aggies this year? What do you expect from Jimbo Fisher and this Texas A&M football team in 2018?